Welcome back to We Want Picks. I'm Artem MMA, and we're going to be getting into the second half of the Dana White's Contender Series 2023 season. And this is the half of the season which I need to take it all back from Gianni the Greek. Gianni the Greek has taken me on, and he has won the first half of the season. I feel like my breakdowns have been pretty good. I've been highlighting the strengths and the weaknesses of every fighter quite well, but the predictions have just been dead wrong every time, and it's just really, really rough and quite demotivating, really, because I truly am putting in so much time and effort into this tape study, and I'm getting beaten by Gianni the Greek, who I don't really feel like is doing anything except looking at the line movement and picking his picks based off that, but that doesn't matter. He's beating me, but today in this episode, I'm going to be trialing something new. I'm going to be giving my predictions based off my tape study as well, but also because Dana White's Contender Series is completely random, I do have another theory of testing that randomness, and that is flipping a coin, a very small coin. It's a 20-cent coin. It's just something that I found in my bedroom, and we're going to be flipping that as well. So you've got my picks based off my tape, and you can also go with the coin as well. I do know that this has been trialed by other MMA YouTubers in the past, but I'm going to be doing it for every single fight starting from here. But now, before we do get into the predictions, you do have all of the We Want Picks premium content, not just from me, but from Angelo, from Jacob, from Running Mouth MMA, from the AI as well. You just get so much content for $10 a month, and you can get a 3-day free trial by signing up using my code Artem. And now let's get into the predictions for Dana White's Contender Series week number 6, and it is time to turn it around and take it all back from Gianni the Greek. So the first fight of the night is going to be Julia Pilastri taking on Patricia Alujas. Now, Tapology does have it listed at flyweight. I do believe it's going to be at 115 pounds, as they also have it listed here. I'm about 99% sure this fight is going to be at strawweight, but maybe things could change. I'm actually recording this on Wednesday, literally just hours after Dana White's Contender Series week number 5, so things could change throughout the card, but I am going to Australia, so I'm kind of putting it out a little bit early because I'm heading over to UFC 293. Now, let's get into it. Julia Pilastri taking on Patricia Alujas. I'm going with Pilastri. I believe Pilastri is the better fighter. There's a lot less red flags kind of surrounding her as well, whereas with Alujas, she's fought twice in the last 4 years. She's a little bit scrappy. She can be pretty fun to watch, but in my opinion, I just haven't really been too impressed by her whatsoever and her level of competition. Julia Pilastri has fought on Dana White's Contender Series before. She did fight Jasmine de Sousa Vicious, who has now gone on to have pretty good success in the UFC at 125 pounds, and that fight was at 125. Pilastri moved up a weight class for that one. Not really too sure why. I guess she just kind of wanted to take the opportunity because she was fine at 115 in the past. She lost to Jasmine, then took on a very experienced fighter, a girl with a losing record, and then a pretty good prospect in Brenda Gotek, and she was able to win that one by submission. I think Pilastri beats Alujas. I think Pilastri is really good. She's only 25 years old. I think she does have a pretty good future in the sport. I'm going to go with heads on the coin for Pilastri and tails for Alujas. It is heads. Okay, we've got Julia Pilastri in the matchup. The coin also agrees. So let's go with Julia Pilastri. I think she does get it done. She could maybe get a finish in this matchup, but I just think that Pilastri is a little bit better everywhere. I think that she should be able to get it done over Patricia Alujas. And another fight which I do have a relatively confident pick in. Now, it is worth noting that this is heavyweight MMA, and anything can happen, especially because this is two strikers and two guys that are probably going to stand and bang with each other. Eduardo Neves taking on Jonathan Deniz. Eduardo Neves is only 23 years old, which is kind of crazy because he's quite young and he has achieved a pretty decent amount in his heavyweight career already, especially when you do consider that a lot of heavyweights are typically quite old. Eduardo Neves, only 23 years old, fought on Dana White's Contender Series last year, made me look like a complete idiot because he gassed out in 90 seconds. I'm not even joking, dude. I don't actually know what went on in that fight whatsoever, but he did gas out in 90 seconds to Mick Parkin, who recently made his debut and looked pretty good against Jamal Pogues. And then he took on a 10-4 opponent, knocked him out, knocked out Thiago Silva in that matchup as well. And Thiago Silva was also on the Contender Series, I believe. That is a lie. It was a lie. He fought someone that was on the Contender Series, but Thiago Silva himself wasn't on the Contender Series. That's what happens when you record videos in one take. Jonathan Deniz is a former Glory kickboxer. Now, he didn't have the most successful kickboxing career whatsoever. It's not like he had like 50 fights or anything like that, but he did make it pretty far, and he did make it into Glory, where he did have some good wins as well. Fought against some pretty well-known fighters as well. well. But I do believe that he should have a pretty good transition over to MMA. He's knocked everybody out that he's fought. He hasn't necessarily fought the best guys in the world, but he has knocked everyone out so far. This is going to be a striking fight. Eduardo Neves, he kind of is. I mean, this would be a fun fight if the UFC put it on maybe Dana White's Contender Series next year. He reminds me a bit of Chandler Cole. Eduardo Neves versus Chandler Cole would be a fun scrap. It's two guys that are just ready to brawl, but Jonathan Deniz at heavyweight, he does have pretty good technique, and I think that he should be the more technical fighter in a striking match. Now, it is worth noting, though, that I've got absolutely no idea what Jonathan Deniz wrestling and grappling looks like. He hasn't really been taken down or tested too much in that sort of area. I'm going to assume it's good enough to deal with Eduardo Neves, because Eduardo Neves is not a wrestler. He is not a grappler. He just wants to stand and bang. Heads is Eduardo Neves. Tails is Jonathan Deniz. And we've got heads. Okay, so the coin has picked Eduardo Neves. I am picking Jonathan Deniz. Me and the coin do not agree on this fight, but I'm going to go with Deniz. I think Deniz knocks him out probably in the second round. I think Neves might look good to start, but I think he's just going to blow his load and gas out again like he did against McParkin. So now let's move on up the card. Jun Matsumoto taking on Casey Tanner. One thing I'm going to say about this fight is Casey Tanner and the Tapology votes, incredibly underrated. Only 7% people picking Casey Tanner, which is crazy. This is actually one of those fights I kind of am sad that it's going to happen, because someone is going to lose. And for Casey Tanner, he's almost 32 years old at bantamweight right now. It kind of is now or never for him, whereas Jun Matsumoto is 24 years old, already has a crazy record, 13-0, and he has fought pretty good guys to build up that record. You know, it's pretty impressive what he has managed to do. But to talk about Casey Tanner, I think Casey Tanner's a UFC level bantamweight. This guy is really, really good, and I cannot believe that only 7% of people are picking him on Tapology. It is absolutely insane. Tanner, as I said, he's very good. He's a good striker, but he also wrestles as well, and wrestling kind of is the main part of his game. He's never really had any issues with taking people down whatsoever. When he took on his best opponent, I believe, yes, it was against Terry Bartholomew, he had absolutely no issues really getting him down to the mat and was able to dominate with very heavy top control in that matchup. He works the body very well when he's striking, throws a lot of kicks, and just is a pretty good striker. There isn't really a lot of weaknesses to Casey Tanner's game that I can notice, but the thing about Jun Matsumoto, there are weaknesses to Jun Matsumoto's game. I have seen Jun Matsumoto taken down. I have seen Jun Matsumoto struggle in fights. I've seen him hit before as well. But one thing I guess you could argue about Jun Matsumoto is he does have a much more aggressive style, which would kind of put him in worse positions than Casey Tanner's style, I guess. And also another thing as well, that Jun Matsumoto, I would argue, is fighting the much higher level of competition. Casey Tanner's best win is over this guy who was 7-3 at the time. He beat a 2-3 opponent, but he just kind of dominated him. There's not really a lot to learn about that fight, but this is a good fight to watch. I think this is the best fight to watch on Casey Tanner. Really showcases good skill. Before, he's not really fighting the best guys, and he's been very inactive in his career as well. Whereas Jun Matsumoto, who's only 24 years old, fought 5 times in the last 2 years, and he has fought good guys, you know what I mean? Like, even from the start of his career, when he was 6-0, he beat a 4-0 guy, 10-3, 13-6, 9-3, 9-1, 7-0. He's beaten good guys. Now, this 7-0 guy, he did have a pretty padded record, I will be honest. And he did get a win over a 4-18 opponent. You get the point. It wasn't a good 7-0, but Jun Matsumoto did manage to get a good win in that matchup. He actually almost got the guillotine in the very first round, but ended up getting it in the second. I'm actually going to go with Jun Matsumoto in this matchup, because I do believe he is the more dangerous fighter. But if Casey Tanner won this fight, I would not be surprised. If there are absolutely insane underdog odds on Casey Tanner, which I don't think that there will be, but if there are, he could be a very good underdog. I'm going to go Jun Matsumoto, as the public is going with as well. But I do want to express that this is actually a pretty low confidence pick. I think that Casey Tanner is 100% a UFC level fighter, and it is a shame that he's been so inactive in his career. He's only fought 2 times in the last 2.5 years. 5 times in the last 5 years. I feel like maybe if Casey Tanner could have been a little bit more active, maybe built up that record a little bit faster, we could have seen him in a situation like this maybe a year ago. But he's taken on Jun Matsumoto. Matsumoto is he's a lot more aggressive. He's more dangerous in my opinion. I think he can go out there and finish Casey Tanner, but honestly, if Casey Tanner, as I said, wins this fight, I wouldn't be too surprised. Now I'm going to flip the coin. Heads is Jun Matsumoto. Tails is Casey Tanner. And the coin has gone with tails. So we're going to be going with Casey Tanner for the coin. I am going with Jun Matsumoto. Me and the coin disagree. Maybe that's a big red flag for you guys out there. Maybe Casey Tanner's just going to go out there and win now, but I'm thinking Matsumoto. Let's see if the Artem curse is real. Now we move on to AJ Cunningham versus Stephen Nguyen. This fight is really, really weird to predict. And the reason why is there's just so many things that could go wrong in this matchup, and I could look like a fool either way. I feel like if AJ Cunningham wins this matchup, he dominates the fight with his wrestling and grappling, and he very likely wins the fight in the first round. I feel like if Stephen Nguyen wins this fight, he dominates on the feet, and AJ Cunningham gasses out after the first round, and Stephen Nguyen kind of picks him apart and wins a decision or maybe a late TKO. But here's the interesting part about this fight. Stephen Nguyen hasn't fought for 2 years, and the last time he fought was on Dana White's Contender Series, and their performance wasn't super impressive in my opinion. He was coming off that KO over Jorge Suarez. In LFA. He lost to Alon Cruz by third round KO. Alon Cruz is now in Bellator actually. But Stephen Nguyen, like, where has this guy been? He's fought 5 times in the last 5 years. You can actually tell that he's a pretty good striker. He's a very good boxer, but he's just not been doing anything. I'm really confused what he's been doing for 2 years, because in the last 2 years, he could have just been doing a little record padding. You know, he could have fought a few guys and losing records, took it on a couple of guys, and maybe had like a 10-1 record, 11-1 record on the UFC. Would have been like, wow, that's a nice record. We could have just picked him up from there. But instead, I don't really know what he's been up to, because if you go to his Instagram, he's been training, he's been hard at work, you know, training, and I don't know what he's really been doing. Why has he not been fighting for 2 years? Maybe something happened in his life and he just decided to take a break. But now we can move on to AJ Cunningham, because speaking of life stories, this guy's life story is insane. He came up in a pretty rough sort of family. I'm not going to go too far into it, but if you look into AJ Cunningham's life, it actually is quite insane. But when it comes to his fighting, AJ Cunningham, two sort of things happen. Sometimes he goes out there with absolutely no respect for his opponent whatsoever, and he just completely empties the tank in the first round, going for a finish, going for his wrestling, going for his grappling. Or sometimes he can fight at a pretty controlled pace. He took on this guy Jason Mullen, who was 6-4 at the time, and that fight was at a pretty controlled pace. And AJ Cunningham in the second round was visibly tiring out. And that's one thing that I've noticed about AJ Cunningham's gas tank. I worry about his gas tank a lot. Now, he does have a very good first round all the time. Sometimes he is just going out there, emptying the gas tank in the first round, and then slowing down in the second and third and losing. That's how he does lose some of his fights. Or he has close fights and fights that he shouldn't be having. But against Jason Mullen, this fight he fought a lot more controlled. A lot of the fight was on the feet, and he was slowing down a lot in the second round. But it is worth noting he is very, very big for this weight class, and he does have good wrestling and grappling. But even in this matchup, he was striking a little bit too much for my liking, in my opinion. Because one thing I am going to say about AJ Cunningham striking is it definitely is a work in progress. He's very hittable on the feet, but when it comes to his wrestling and grappling, he's very dominant. He's a very, very good wrestler and grappler. And if I do believe if AJ Cunningham wins this fight, it's going to be with that wrestling and grappling. If you can believe it, I'm actually going to pick Stephen Nguyen, but I want you guys to know that this fight literally is a coin flip, because Stephen Nguyen hasn't fought for 2 years. AJ Cunningham, you know, he's a very good wrestler and grappler. Who knows how good Stephen Nguyen's takedown defense is going to be. I mean, it's just one of those fights. It really is. I'm going to go with Stephen Nguyen. I do believe that AJ Cunningham is going to slow down throughout the fight. I think Nguyen should be able to have a pretty good game plan, keep the fight on the feet, work the body early on, put on a pretty high pace is what I would do if I was fighting AJ Cunningham, make AJ Cunningham work in that first round, because he has shown that he does consistently slow down after the first. So give me Stephen Nguyen to win this fight by decision or late TKO. It's a weird fight, man. I kind of do wish that AJ Cunningham wins, because I can trust AJ Cunningham to fight more often than Stephen Nguyen. Like, this guy he's just not fighting, man. But anyway, heads is going to be AJ Cunningham, tails is going to be Stephen Nguyen. And it's heads. Okay, so me and the coin disagree again. The coin has AJ Cunningham. I have Stephen Nguyen. In my opinion, do not bet this fight. Stay away from this fight. I mean, there's just red flags galore. Hopefully, I brought up enough red flags to scare you away from this one. Do not bet on this fight. It is not worth it. I'm going to go Stephen Nguyen to win, though, in this matchup. And then we can move on to James Lontop taking on Malik Lewis. I am losing to Peru. That's another thing. I'm not taking on Peru. I'm not taking on Peru whatsoever. But Peru fighters consistently make me look silly. You know, in the first week where I picked against Peru and I lost, I believe it was like the third week, I picked against Peru. I picked Robbie Ring to win that fight. and he lost. And I'm gonna do it again. I'm actually gonna pick Malik Lewis in this matchup, but I do have reason to pick him. But we'll get into the fight now. It's gonna be James Lontop taking on Malik Lewis at 155. If you guys can remember, Malik Lewis, he did actually fight against Trevor the Peak, and he was beating on Trevor the Peak for about 4 minutes of the first round. It was really looking good in that fight. I picked Malik Lewis in that matchup as well. And True the Peak with his rock solid head, man, and it's just an unbelievable chin and will to win the fight. Come back at the end of the first, come back in the second round, and manage to finish the fight against Malik Lewis. It was absolutely insane. Malik Lewis's cardio failed him in that fight. Malik Lewis was beating True the Peak, and he gassed out and lost. Malik Lewis come back. He took on this guy Paulo Silva, who was 8-6, won the fight in the third round. Once again, the cardio, man, he slowed down again. This is the problem with Malik Lewis, man. I feel like he's going to have to finish James Lontop if he wants to win this fight, because I do worry about Malik Lewis's cardio. Like, this guy's 6 foot for the weight class, so is James Lontop, but he's big for the weight class. He's a very, very skilled fighter, very good striker, but the way that he has got a few of his fights done in the past is with his wrestling and grappling. He beat, I guess you could say, the best opponent of his career, this 15-3 opponent. He beat him by using his wrestling and his grappling. It was pretty uneventful to start the fight, and then as soon as he got the fight down to the ground, he won by submission. But I'm going to go with Malik Lewis. I think that he is the better fighter than James Lontop. James Lontop is another fighter that I'm very familiar with because I have been making videos on my YouTube channel, RTMMA, about fighters from Peru that I think the UFC could and should sign. And James Lontop has been in those videos. One thing I'm going to say about James Lontop is I think that he is just a much less technical fighter, but the thing is, sometimes you don't have to be the more technical fighter to win. You just got to have the heart and the desire to win. I mean, we've seen it in the past, especially on Dana White's Contender Series. Sometimes, in my opinion, the less skilled fighter is getting it done, and maybe James Lontop could be one of those guys. But I feel like this fight, again, could be similar to the Malik Lewis versus Trevor the Peak fight, where Malik Lewis is going to be the better fighter. Malik Lewis is going to be the fighter beating on his opponent, and it's going to come down to, can James Lontop take the damage that Malik Lewis is going to be dishing out? Can James Lontop handle Malik Lewis's pressure? And I'm going to say no. So I'm going to pick Malik Lewis by finishing this one here. I think that it's going to be similar to the Trevor Peak fight, but James Lontop isn't going to be as tough as literally Steve from Minecraft. True the Peak. It's just unreal how much damage that man took in that fight. Heads for the coin is going to be James Lontop. Tails is going to be Malik Lewis. Let's get into it. And it is tails. So I agree with the coin. The coin has Malik Lewis. I have Malik Lewis. I mean, it's going to be the Peru court curse of me versus the coin and my tape study. Let's see who can win. Honestly, it's just at this point, who knows. But I am with Malik Lewis. Only 11% of people are picking him on Tapology. That's crazy. But hey, it is what it is. I'm thinking Malik Lewis. Let me know what you guys think of my picks in the comments below. And together as a team, we can take on Gianni the Greek and we can defeat him. So to go over my picks, these are my picks, not the coins picks that I did with my tape study. I'm on Julia Pilastri. I like Jonathan Deniz, Jun Matsumoto, Stephen Nguyen, and James Lontop. The coins picks from memory are Julia Pilastri, Eduardo Neves, Casey Tanner, AJ Cunningham, and Malik Lewis. Did I remember the coin correctly? Who knows? I'm recording this video at 12 AM in the morning. I'll see you guys in the next one.